Today we are going to be talking about some more product management decisions, and we're going to be concentrating a little bit on one area that is so important to marketers today, and that is branding and how important branding really is. So let's just go ahead and get started right away. When we're talking about branding, we're talking about creating an identity for this product, something that the consumer or even the B2B buyer can relate to. So we're going to have to choose a brand name, a brand mark, or a character that represents our organization, our company, this particular product line. A brand name, for example, could be Nike, it could be Smuckers, it could be Nabisco, it could be Oreos. Okay, it doesn't have to be a company name, but it can be the name of a product, something that we really identify. To the public, that tells them who you are. That tells them what kind of quality they can expect from this product because they get to know that brand. A brand mark is a symbol that represents the product line or the company. For example, in Nike, they have that little check mark, what we call a swoosh. That represents Nike products. What about characters? Oh, I don't know, Mickey Mouse? Can anybody out there guess what company Mickey Mouse represents? I'm sure you all know that's Disney. But that is a registered brand or trademark that identifies a company. If Mickey Mouse is on it, you know who produced this. You know what kind of quality to expect. You have certain expectations. Now, when we talk about branding, in the U.S. we very commonly mean the same thing as trademark or trade name. Okay? When we call something a trademark or a trade name, that means we have registered it. It is legally protected. It belongs to us. Now, what's important to know is that you have to register your brand in every country that you're doing business in, or every country that you anticipate doing business in. This is not a worldwide registration. It is a national registration. Once you are registered, it is protected. It belongs to you. Nobody else can use it without your permission, or else you have right to sue them on that. You can tell when a brand name's been registered or a symbol's been registered because it has that little R inside of a circle right next to it, which means registered. In the U.S., it's pretty hard to find a brand name that has not been registered. It is the first thing you need to do. You have to protect yourself that way. Now, when you're choosing a brand name, there are some guidelines, but there's no rules. For example, when you're choosing a brand name, it should be easy to spell, easy to say, easy to remember, and give you an idea of what the product is about. A perfect example of a brand name that does all of those is Drano. It's easy to pronounce, it's easy to spell. You know right away it's going to have something to do with drains. You're going to remember that. That's not a difficult thing at all. It's a great brand name. But there's a lot of good brand names that don't fit into those descriptions as well. One I mentioned earlier is Smuckers. You know, Smuckers is very well known and has a great reputation for their jams and jellies, but that's a silly name. It's a family name, though, and so they chose to use it, and that's fine. They had to address that issue. For a number of years ago, I can't even remember how many, number of years ago, they had a campaign out just focusing on their name, and that it is a little more difficult and more unusual, really trying to build that brand identity. Why is that so important? Because of something we call brand equity. Brand equity is so important to an organization. It's how much that brand name is worth. We as marketers don't usually figure out a monetary value of the brand equity. Accounting people do. If we want to, as we'll talk about in a moment, if we want to allow somebody else to use our brand name, how much are we going to charge them? Well, that's what we find out through the brand equity, what it's actually worth. Marketing's responsibility is to increase that brand equity, to protect it, make sure nothing negative is associated with that brand name, and do everything we can to build that identity and the value of that brand, that it represents quality, that it's something that's going to have a long-term future. Individual products may come and go, but that brand is long-term value to a company. Now, when we talk about brands, common ways of talking about brands is looking at manufacturer, which are also called national brands, and private brands, which are also called dealer or store brands. Now, we could spend a lot of time talking about this. The fact is, manufacturer brands have always held the lion's share of the market, and they continue to do so, and they will for the foreseeable future. But private label brands, those store brands, are closing the gap. They're catching up. The reason is people are realizing there's not a whole lot of difference between manufacturer brands and private label brands. Sometimes they're identical. Why is that? Well, if you buy a product from Kroger's and it says Kroger on the label, do you think Kroger manufactured that product? No. Kroger's a retailer. They don't manufacture anything. A manufacturer, probably one that you know and recognize their name for, manufactured that product for Kroger and put their name on it for them. That way, the manufacturer gets profit from sale of private label as well as the national brand. And Kroger helps to build a loyalty to their store, to their products. Why then do people still buy more manufacturer brand? Because we know what we're getting. We know who manufactured it. We can trust it. We know the consistency's there. We don't know who manufactured the private label brand, and we can't find out. That's very protected information. Some other considerations we have in terms of the brand is the use of family branding. And family branding is when we put our brand name on multiple products that we manufacture. For example, I talked about Oreos. We have Oreo double stuffed, regular, fudge covered, mint flavored, coffee flavored, peanut butter flavored, vanilla Oreos, a whole brand. If you bring out something that says Oreos on it, we know what to expect. We know it's going to be really good. And so we understand that consistency of product through the use of family branding. Sometimes it's not appropriate. For example, if we had a negative image associated with a brand, we don't want to carry that forward onto other products, so we wouldn't want to family brand it at that point in time. If we have a lower quality product that we offer, we don't want it to have the same brand name as our higher quality product. It also may be that the products just don't overlap. For example, Hanes and Sara Lee, same company, same brand, same overall, but two very well-known brand names. Can you imagine buying a cheesecake that says Sara Lee on it? I mean, hopefully you can. Can you imagine buying a cheesecake that said Hanes on it? Or a pair of underwear that says Sara Lee? The image just doesn't cross over. So that's a case where we might want to limit our family branding. Licensing is when we sell the right for somebody else to use our brand name. This is where brand equity is so important. If McDonald's lets Sears use their brand name, which they have in their McKids line, how much should McDonald's charge for that? Well, that's where accounting comes in, and they figure out the actual worth of that brand name. They're also going to make sure, McDonald's is, that Sears is upholding the standards that they want associated with the McDonald brand name as well. And then finally, co-branding is when there's a product with two or more brand names on it. Sticking with my Oreos, which I will do until the day I die, I think it's Breyers, and forgive me if I'm wrong, Breyers makes an ice cream that has Oreos in it. So Breyers and Oreos ice cream. That is co-branding. There's two different brand names on that product. Okay, now let's take a little different look at how we can create product identity, and that is through the decisions we make in our packaging. Packaging many times is overlooked. It's not considered important. It's looked at being the last thing we need to do. But packaging actually plays a number of different roles in our product decisions. First off, the purpose. It's obvious, I hope, that it's going to provide protection. It's going to protect the product as it's being transferred from one location to another, as it's being stored. And it also protects the buyer. It keeps the product from getting damaged. For example, hopefully the package keeps milk from spoiling. Okay, so the buyer gets a higher quality product. It also, if it's a pharmaceutical type of good or some kind of medicine, it has tamper-resistant packaging on it, again, to protect the buyer. The package also helps us store the product effectively. If you're selling a round product, it's pretty hard to stack a round product on the shelves in your warehouse or on your display shelves. But if we put it in a square package, we can stack it as high as we want. We can use all of our space efficiently. So it helps reduce some costs there. The last thing about the package itself in terms of the purpose, and again, one that's overlooked many times, is this is your last opportunity to promote your product. Here's the customer standing in front of your product, staring at it, wanting to buy, trying to decide which one they should buy. Your package should say, pick me, pick me. It gets their attention. It gives them some kind of favorable information, hopefully promoting that brand, getting them, again, to buy your product because of your last attempt to promote it. Your package also needs to contain a label. Most products today contain a UPC code, which is the barcode that you're familiar with. It is necessary for scanning at checkout counters. The UPC codes identify the product, identify who made it. It can also track which batch it came from. So if there's ever a need to recall a product or something like that, we can trace it. The label needs to get attention. Okay, it needs to be effective. It needs to give information that is called for so that you can understand it. And sometimes that's very difficult. And this kind of goes into the next area that I have there, labeling laws. If we look at the label on food products, if you have an allergy, many times it's very hard to decide if this product contains that ingredient or not. Because of all the chemical names, because of how much information is on there, how small the print is, it's very difficult to read. So Congress is currently looking at a number of different labeling laws that they want to enact to try and make labels more standardized, more effective, something that somebody without a degree in chemistry can understand. It also is considering different labeling laws in terms of the use of specific words. For example, if you see the word light on a product, what does it mean? Right now, it could mean anything. We assume it means light in calories, but it doesn't have to be. It could be low in calories, low in fat, low in weight, light in color. It can mean a number of different things. There's no consistency. Okay, so let's try and wrap up what we've talked about here today. Products will come and go, but a company's long-term future revolves around their brands, especially as internet sales continue to increase. The reason for that is people are going to want to buy the brands they know and trust. So promoting the brand on the internet takes away a lot of the questions about not knowing what they're actually going to get when they order a product. And secondly, the package of a product is part of the product and needs to be incorporated into the strategic planning as much as the other elements of the product. That is all we have for this segment. I'll see you next time.